Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first session of the AI Study Hack series. My name is Cindy. I'm the instructor from the University Libraries, and today we are honored to have Jason, a medical student and also the co-founder of memo.cards, an app that he and his partner have developed for all learners to study smarter. So without further ado, let me pass the mic to Jason. Hi, Jason, welcome, and you can share your screen now.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Jason, and I am currently a co-founder of Exxon Labs, and we are a startup where we build AI software for students and for general public. So a little bit background for me. So my name, I'm currently a fourth year medical student at the Taxonomy Faculty of Medicine, HKU. And I've also tried a lot of different types of software products, and I love integrating medicine studying as well as software. So with my main product, Memo Cards, which is previously called PDF to Anki, where our goal is to cut student study time by half using AI. And previously, during high school, I've also dwelled with different types of ideas, including a science revision tool for high school, as well as last year, we tried on the AI-powered speech therapy for stroke patients. And last year as well, I started a new application on the mobile phone, and it's called Health Max, which is a calorie tracker and longevity health tool to screen for diets, and you can track your day-to-day diet, and it'll give you a gamified score every day. But today we're going to focus on Memo, which is an AI study tool. But before we talk about Memo, here's a little bit background information about me. I'm really passionate about technology and learning efficiency. And actually, at the start, I was really into Anki. So Anki is a flashcard program where it utilizes the principle of active recall and spaced repetition quite. So in a sense, it has two major criteria. We have active recall and spaced repetition. Active recall is where we try to grill ourselves questions instead of passively reading or highlighting. We are essentially quizzing ourselves by making questions, either fill in the blank questions, closed questions, image occlusion questions, as well as basic question and answer pairs. So there's different types of questions, and we're going to talk about that later on in terms of how we structure from low order thinking to higher order thinking on and how it can be applied across various disciplines. And so with Anki software is that you can actually, besides from making the questions, we can also actually do spaced repetition. So spaced repetition is where we try to review it in a frequent manner, but in a way such that algorithmically we calculate when we're going to forget that material, and before we forget that material, it's reviewed to us so that your memory of that will stay for longer. So also love traveling, and also we also go to various conferences. And this was actually 3 years ago now. This was when AI really was still not popularized yet, and we're already talking about how to utilize pure text language models and see how we could hack our way and produce multimodality data. And here we are talking about how we could format it in a mermaid flowchart, and we're using a one-shot prompt here, where if we give a one-shot example to, in this case, I think it was ChatGPT 3.5, we could see how we could regenerate notes into the algorithmic flowchart. So that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago to our medical professors. And we also received the Innovation and Technology Award in medical education, and also love sports science. And I've also received an Innovation Technology Scholarship Award as well last year. So my journey started in high school, where I started creating websites just to share notes. So that's how I started learning how to start with HTML, CSS, the basics of networks, how to create websites where everyone can be seen. And now Memo is the new iteration of that, where it is an all-in-one study suite where students can upload their materials and create personalized content such as flashcards, notes, and quizzes mock exams, as well as a live tutor that guides you through the way. So we also have created different projects that sort of didn't get popularized, but essentially we have different ideas where instead of scrolling, it's a TikTok for studying. So we call it Study Talk, where it actually algorithmically generates study content instead of brain rot. This is also a picture of the Health Max, which is the AI calorie tracker, speech on as well. So this is the first version of Memo, and it's actually called PDF to Anki. And essentially, it's a very simple idea. At the start, we wanted to just focus on flashcards. So at the flashcards, you just upload a lecture slide, and then it will create these flashcards that are compatible to be exported into Anki, right? Or imported into Anki. So we upload a lecture on diuretics in this case. And then so here it will create different types of questions that will quiz me, right? So how do these drugs affect the kidney excretion of water, right? How do loop diuretics affect the reabsorption of magnesium and calcium, etc. So this was the first version. It was quite rough, but it did the job really well, and it saved really a lot of time because at that time, before the era of this tool or before the era of large language models, we would actually just hand manually write or just manually type in all these questions ourselves. And now it has reiterated over these 2 years into a really good sort of platform where not only generates flashcards, but also really relies on many of the evidence-based learning principles, which is our goal, is to spread the evidence-based learning principles that has been proven through longitudinal trials and meta-analyses. So here, this is called the spaced repetition. So essentially, what happened is that if you use any of the spaced repetition programs, it could be Anki, it could be Memo, it could be Remno, etc., is that once you grade something, you would grade it if it's hard, good, or easy, right? So when you grade something as good, easy, or hard, you're basically grading yourself, right? How well you know that particular fact. So it could be any type of fact that you want to know for your exams, for your interviews, for your career, etc. But it could be a fact like how the drug works. It could be what the formula for the Newton's second law. So it could be any fact that you want to know and get into your brain. So what happens is that when you grade yourself hard, good, and easy, the algorithm will be able to calculate when the next review date will be. So this could be either 4 days, 8 days, 20 days, etc. So that is where the algorithm would know that at that time or point in time, based on how you graded yourself, that would be the time where you're just about to forget that type of information. So if you review it every single day, it will tell you this particular fact should be reviewed today, this particular fact should be reviewed tomorrow. And in essence, if you review every single day, in theory, right, all the information will be retained in your brain for a really, really long time because just before you're about to forget it, you're shown that particular type of information. So this is called spaced repetition. And we added a layer on top of that called smart spaced repetition, where it would also grade it for you. So instead of grading it yourself from 1 to 4, which could be kind of arbitrary, as well as you would usually cheat yourself by saying you know this fact quite well. So a smart spaced repetition where we add a layer of AI on top of it and it'll grade it for you. So you can answer and it'll grade it for you and know for that particular fact how well you know for that particular information, which we'll talk about later. And very important as well is actually different types of cards. And actually, how you create the cards are also really important. So in essence, for different types of fields, we want to create either lower order cards or higher order cards, right? So lower order cards will be just simple factual information, or in a sense that it would be one fact and one answer, right? And that would be using the minimal information principle, right? Where we want to have just one fact on one card. If we're not using the minimal information principle, we're having a lot of information on one card. It will be much of a higher order card where we would actually have a bunch of information in one card. Maybe we're dealing with more of a conceptual understanding, right? We're thinking about the renal tubular absorption and how one drug affects the channels in this drug and leads to what clinical features the patient might present with. So that requires a synthesis of multiple pathways, including how the drug is being absorbed, right? How the kidneys filter or reabsorb that drug and leading to what symptoms the patient will present. So that actually requires a lot of information in one card, right? A drawing linking different, so it'll be much higher order, but however, that card will be much longer, right? And it would be more of a maximal information instead of minimal information. And in a sense, that also is that the with multimodal LLMs, right? If you use any tools, so today we're not just talking about memo, but instead how we can bring the concept of learning into the different various tools out there in the market, including, for example, later on, I think the later workshops will talk about Microsoft Copilot, Perplexity, etc. Is that how we utilize it is quite important as well. So nowadays it's very, very multimodal. So we could upload even images, videos, or generate images, videos. Like I think a couple days ago with the Gemini free as well as Nano Banana, the images are really, really, really good, such that we could actually utilize them to not just for generating just images, but also generating resources, right? It could be memory palaces, it could be sketches to help reinforce your memory, etc. So generating multimodal data, but also ingesting multimodal data from PDFs to YouTube videos to text to audio to lecture recordings, etc. Much, much faster, right? We could simply put in the audio and get summarized content from that. And what's cool nowadays is that with the context length being so long, so 2 or 3 years ago, the context length could actually be around 4,000 tokens, right? 4,000 tokens is actually nothing back then. So 2 or 3 years ago, we would have to think about how we fit content into the context window. So there's a huge era or huge discipline of thinking about how to do chunking and retrieval, right? So if we retrieve specific content based on the query and then fit that in the small context window, that is hence it has to be relevant as well. So there's a huge discipline of thinking how we can retrieve relevant chunks. If you were talking about a 1,000-page PDF, right? That's impossible 2 or 3 years ago to feed into. So it has to be able to search or either retrieve relevant pages to answer that particular question. So nowadays, the context window is now up to like 1 million or 2 million with the new models with Gemini. And so 1 million, 2 million tokens, easily you could feed in the entire series of Harry Potter books in it. So if you want to ask, for example, what Hermione did in that particular book, or in particular section or in that class, what did she say? It'll easily retrieve because the context window is so large. And however, query and retrieving is also really important to prevent the idea of dilution of the context. So the longer the context window, sometimes the needle in the haystack would be harder to retrieve. So it's a fine balance between how much information we want to feed into the context, but also how smart we want to retrieve certain queries. So it's an optimization problem. And so this is the different types of cards with multiple choice questions and Q&As and fill in the blanks. So fill in the blanks are very easy and low mental effort to do. And however, they allow us to understand conceptually. And this could also be bulk generated very, very easily. And Q&A is a very standard format and allows easy retrieval. So where is this particular sound best heard on? It's A. So very easy. We know that fact and we can move on straight away. MCQs could either be lower order or higher order, and sometimes it really allows us to be able to synthesize information or conceptually understand it. However, MCQ flashcards usually are done once or twice because you could actually memorize contextually which option it will be instead of the actual understanding. So with Memo, we will actually try to randomize the option choices as well so that it will prevent that bias of just understanding or memorizing the option choice. And what's very important as well is the grading part. So in the traditional sense, using spaced repetition is that it will be grading yourself from 1, 2, 3, 4 of how well you know that information. So let's say the question is, what is the central dogma of DNA, right? So let's say I answer the theory that says genetic information flows from DNA, RNA to protein, or RNA directly to protein. Okay, and this is actually a pretty good answer. But then how would I grade myself if I'm correct or not? So actually, we want to be able to talk about perhaps transcription or translation, which is how the DNA actually goes into RNA, and then where RNA goes into proteins via translation. So maybe I missed that particular information. But then as a human, I will have to judge myself from 1 to 4 if I know that information quite well. So if I press 1, then perhaps I completely don't know. I have no idea what even is the central dogma of DNA. Yeah, press 1. And usually when you press 1, it'll show again, the card will show again in various different types of flashcard apps, but you'll show again in either 10 minutes or very close interval. Because if you don't know, then obviously you want to see it again in a very close order of time. Hence, 1 would be when you don't know. 2 is where it's more arbitrary. So 2 is hard. If it's 2 is hard, arbitrary, then perhaps I know about it, but it takes me very much some mental effort to be able to retrieve it, right? So maybe I have to take more time to be able to know or figure it out. Now, 3 is good where I know if someone's asked me, or maybe in the exam or professor asks you what is the central dogma of DNA, I'm able to answer it. So that is where we press 3. Oh, good. Number 4, or if you press 4, that is where it is easy. So maybe once you see it, you already know it instantly, right? It could be a time-based thing where you know it instantly, and hence we have 1 to 4 scale. Now, what we did as well, what we did on top of that, the traditional way is that where you actually type in or actually talk, and we will transcribe that text and compare it to the gold standard answer. And hence, we were able to grade it. And that would actually reduce the subjectability of how well you grade yourself, and hence increase the accuracy of how the algorithm calculates when the next interval review date should be. So, so why Hong Kong? And actually, so why study tools actually? So right now, students tools for students have been scattered and quite inefficient. So there's actually a lot of tools nowadays. So we could use, for example, Notion, Notes, RemNote, Evernote. And with flashcards, we could use Quizlet, Anki, RemNotes, etc. And with all these tools nowadays, even with AI-powered tools, we have Perplexity, Copilot, Gemini, and a lot of NotebookLM is also. So all these tools are quite scattered. So actually, how do we know also purpose on focusing on the modern learning experience? The modern learning experience where it's digital, you can access it from all sorts of devices, but also have the layer of AI where it actually helps you, right? And improves learning efficiency and improves understanding of that material from the lower level to the higher level. And what's actually quite crucial, what we noticed in Hong Kong, is that actually students are undergoing quite a more stress than ever before, which is actually kind of paradoxical because we have more tools, right? It's all going digital, and actually information retrieval is getting easier than what 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, perhaps the information where we want to retrieve or ask questions, we would have to either ask professor, go to the library, find books, and find yourself. But so this is a little bit paradoxical where actually nowadays even 80% of 4 in 5 of college seniors have reported burnouts in their undergraduate years. And even so, compared to undergraduate years, secondary school students are actually even undergoing more pressure than ever. And according to the government's department's statistics, actually 1.6% have attempted suicide. So it's actually a huge amount of impact on stress. And are the tools actually helping you, or are they, impacting it? So actually what we think is that the tools are there, but the students were actually never taught how to learn, right? So all the tools are there. It's getting more and more, it's getting better, right? Instead of traditionally where we have to go to the library, find a book, we could just Google it, right? So Google came about, the internet came about, which actually changed a lot of things. Or nowadays, we could simply ask a model about it if it's not Googleable or the professor's not available. So why is it that we're getting so much more efficient in terms of the tool sets or the tooling that students can use, but the stress is actually getting more? So actually what we think is particular in the context of Hong Kong is that students really were never taught how to learn from the primary level to the secondary level, right? They were never really taught how to study. They were never taught how to take notes, and they were taught how to memorize. In essence, in the primary to secondary level, we've been sort of exposed to bunch of information, right? Bunch of subjects, bunch of perhaps homework, mathematical questions, etc. But what we need to know is actually from the start or from the get-go is that we should know how the brain works and how we can actually utilize our neural connections and sort of hack it in a way such that it is the most efficient. So therefore, we should have been taught how to learn or how the brain works or how we could utilize good study strategies from the get-go. And then we're given the information instead of the other way around. And therefore, we want to change that. So therefore, we launched Memo to solve the problem of sort of making Anki flashcards in medical school. That was the original pain point. Is actually we spent hours and hours making Anki flashcards, and nowadays we have a really good sort of steady growth since 2 years ago, and we're now complete bootstrapped. And the team of us is only two, so two students, and we have nearly over 60,000 monthly users now. And what's cool is that all HKU students joining this seminar would actually have the pro access for free for Memo. But our free plan is super, super generous as well. All right. So what's cool, so let me show you how it works and how we could utilize the different types of sort of principles we have in the learning principle. So if we look at, let's say, the Bloom's taxonomy, for example. So let's have a look at the Bloom's taxonomy. With the Bloom's taxonomy is that we have different levels. We can go from different levels going up. So we have remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So why is this so important? Actually, all your teachers are actually being given this type of framework to able to analyze how they teach us, right? So from remember, are the students able to recall facts or basic concepts? So let's say in the concept of the kidneys, for example, are they able to recall the simple fact that what the kidneys do, what's in the kidney, etc. So these are the basic facts or just the facts you need to know, right? Understand. So this is more a little bit higher order already. Is that are we able to explain ideas and concepts? So in the exam, they would actually use these type of wordings, either classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, etc. So in the exam, maybe it will ask you to explain it, right, instead of defining it. So explain it requires a bit higher order. Are we able to link different concepts together? So are we able to understand that, perhaps if the sodium level is low, what happens to the sodium potassium pump in the collecting duct of the kidney, and therefore leading to what type of concentration that would be up or down in the blood? Apply, so use information in new situations. Are we able to execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate, interpret, or operate, schedule, and sketch? Analyze is where we draw connections among ideas. Evaluate, where we have a stance or where we justify or we know what type of stance we have. And therefore create, where we produce new original work, new research, new ideas based on the information we already know. So this is from low order to high order. So when we upload a particular information onto Memo, we could upload multiple sources. So if you use like NotebookLM, for example, it will be kind of similar where we can upload multiple sources. So in this case, I've uploaded a source of a chapter of a textbook of the urinary system, as well as some of the nursing skills. So it's kind of not particularly the same concept, but it will demonstrate how we could upload multiple sources. So when we upload multiple sources, in a sense here, we have a source or a panel for viewing the PDF. And this could be either PDF, YouTube videos, etc. And nowadays with chat, obviously, is that we want to be able to chat with across multiple sources or decks. So very simple way to understand or get a glimpse of your content is if we could summarize the deck. Okay, so let's say here we want to summarize this deck. And what's happening here is because we have two sources, it will actually try to retrieve the different sources. In this case, we have the urinary system as well as the clinical nursing skills. And here we're using a thinking model, which is the gold standard nowadays in 2025. And there you go. So we have a higher level focus summary. So this is a really simple task to do, where we just simply ask it to summarize. And it talks about the different types of clinical nursing skills, etc. Okay, and okay, so let's say if we want to, let's say, talk about a new topic. So in this case, I've uploaded a fresh new PDF with nothing built on top of it. And this is about the eukaryotic cell structure and organelle. So this is a relatively simple topic, hopefully that is kind of fundamental to biology. So here, what we need to do at the start is get a good glimpse or overview of it. So what I usually do for get a good glimpse of the overview of the content, if it's like sort of not familiar with, then we want to be able to go on the notes. So with notes, there's different types of notes that we could sort of take. We could take notes, table notes, Cornell, summary, toggles, and custom. Now, custom is where we could type in a sort of particular prompt. And Cornell is a particular type of note-taking method where we would actually have a different prompt of active recall prompt and a summary at the end. I'll just simply type in notes, or the simple way of notes. And it sort of really categorizes in a really good way, such that it would use tables, right? And it sort of summarizes the different types of cell organelles we have, different plant cell organelles, even algal and fungal, right? And in a table format, it's actually really, really effective because on a big layout, I could see what's happening, specialized cells and organizations, okay? Practice questions, prokaryotic cells, viruses, practice questions, analysis, types of microscope, cell fractionation, etc. So this is really good, and this is the first step to be able to just glimpse over what's happening. And let's say if I think something is really important, in this case, a rough endoplasmic reticulum, let's just highlight it and give it a good review, and perhaps turn off the PDF view and just focus on the entire view of the notes. So having a good read of the notes sort of allows me to basically get on just level 1 for now, okay? If we could understand the facts. Okay, and actually being able to understand know the facts, I need to want to know or break out the different types of concepts and actually keep it in my brain. Remember, we have active recall and spaced repetition. So we're just reading it as sort of passive recall. So how do we make it active? Okay, so how do we make it active is we want to create questions, right? So the basic principle is just simply create some flashcards. But again, this is a fundamental layer, just creating flashcards. But again, there are different types of flashcards we can do, and you could go from low level to high level flashcards. In this case, we'll just do some basic cards. And I want to ask it to create some flashcards. So if you use any agent tools, like Cursor, etc., it has these types of tool calls as well. So we have a tool call to read content, a tool call to confirm. So let's say if I just want to do eukaryotic cells and not prokaryotic cells, right? I'm not interested in that. So let's just do eukaryotic cells and organelles and confirm. So it's asking me what type of topic I want to focus on. I could also select it all if I want. Okay, so and then it's asking me how many cards I want to do. So he recommends 30 cards to cover the key organelle structures and functions. I could adjust it. And also, if I want to be more specific, this is a higher level thing, I could add templates. And templates are more advanced in the sense that it will force the AI to actually output in a particular type of output. So let's say some of our users actually created muscle trainer, right? So for the physiotherapist, they want to know every single muscle in the body, right? Then for every single muscle, you have to know what the action is, what the movement is, what the blood supply is, how is it innervated, right? Where it came from and where it attaches to. So these are very structured output, right? So it's actually really good if we force the AI to sort of structure output, as in output in a structured way. So every single flashcard follows this particular type of schema. And where if we want to create flashcards for the muscles, it would always tell me to recall what the attachment is, the innervation, the blood supply, what the muscle does, what the name of the muscle, etc. So in this case, I'll just let it free form with no particular output force, and I'll press confirm. Okay, so in this way, it will go out and sort of do its way. So you can see that it's trying to create the cards in real time. And what's really cool is that every single card would have a page reference number, right? So we have page reference number is that we want to know where the material came from, so that this is sort of the gold standard way. Maybe this is the lecture slide from the professor, and sometimes information would contraindicate between sources, right? So in the sense of a school or an exam or of course in uni, then we always treat perhaps the professor's information as the gold standard because that's how we're examined on anyway, right? So it's done it all. I could review it all inline here, so and see if it's good. And then I could further refine it if I don't like it. So let's say I want to bold important information, or perhaps highlight very important information as well. You could highlight, I could specify, you could highlight using the mark tag, and then perhaps use tables when necessary. So these are different formatting options that I wanted to do. Again, it really varies from different learners to learners, and some people really love using tables, and tables are very effective to have a good glance of concepts and compare and contrast different types of stuff. And highlighting or more visual learners perhaps would love to have different types of formatting that just really eases their eyes. So it really varies from learners to learners. And personally, I quite like tables as well, and because tables allows me to have a higher order glimpse of the different types of concepts. Okay. So it's sort of outputted these cons for me with question, and here we have a question on how the rough endoplasmic reticulum differs from the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, awesome. And that uses the table, and here 3 steps of self-fractionation. Okay, so I wanted to output it in a flashcard, in flashcards, instead of just inline text, right? So I wanted to output using flashcards. And what's cool is that I also highlighted using yellow the very important information that I think it needs. Okay. Okay, so I want to use the flashcard tool to output flashcards. Okay. So here I wanted to perhaps here what we can do if for the good flashcards we could add it to deck or add it all to deck. Here I wanted to output it in a specific way and call the flashcard tool, as you can see. And in this case, the flashcards within here have the page reference, the bolding, as well as some of them the highlighting. Okay, very cool. So you can refine and edit flashcards very easily and quickly in terms of the formatting, the requirements, etc. All right, so as you can see, we have all here. So let me just add it all to the deck. And we add it all to the deck, we could see it all in an overview glimpse. Okay, we have all the cards here. Very good. So some of them have the bolding, the highlighting, etc. And so when we want to be able to recall these factual information, we want to go on learning. So this is very similar to Anki, quiz, etc., but in the sense that here we could toggle on between smart and non-smart grading. So name three organelles found in both animal, plant, eukaryotic cells, and here we're really trying to sort of recall it using our brain. So this is called active recall. So nucleus, let's say mitochondria, membrane. Very good. So the answer is nucleus, mitochondria, and actually it's ribosome. All right, not cell membrane. But anyway, you can see that it tells me that cell membrane is present in both cells, but it's not considered organelle. It's ribosomes. Okay, so it suggested good, which is actually good enough, I think. But I could also override the AI suggestion if it's good, hard, easy. All right. And if I press good now, it'll show again in 9 minutes. Okay. And here, what additional organelles to plant cells have that animal cells do not. Perhaps the chloroplast, okay? Cell wall, back wall, etc. Large back wall, chloroplast, plasmodesmata. Very good, and it suggested our answer to be good, and etc. and so forth. So you can see if I want to do, I could also self-grade myself. Okay. And etc. So when we output and go out of the card, we can see every card has a state now. Okay, so these are called learning states and a due state. And we can see the cards that we reviewed just now is that they're in a learning state. Okay, they're in a learning state means that we're learning this type of card, and the system thinks that we're learning, and we are actually learning this type of information. Due state is the proposed due card or due state of that information. So all these cards have to be seen again in 9 minutes, or this one will be in 7 minutes. Okay, and this would actually be progressively longer and longer as you review every single day, and it could go up to 1 month, 2 months, right? So if that information is very much ingrained in your brain, the next due date usually will be a month, 2 months, several weeks even. Okay. I could also review it by going to this eye icon and going it into hide with AI grading. And here with AI grading, I could go into the particular information, and this is like a Notion toggle view, right? I could select different cards I want, okay? And see tissue, right? So this is perhaps, what is a tissue? Multiple cells carrying a function. Okay. And boom. So my answer is correct. Multiple cells to perform specific functions. And I could be more specific by mentioning they are specialized and work together. And it suggested 9 minutes again. So I would update it and it'll review. And now instantly it's in its learning state and it's due in 9 minutes. So this is really much engraved into the active recall process. Okay. And let's say if I don't know what, let's say I go into another type of question. Okay. What is the form of DNA prokaryotic cell, and what are plasmids? Okay, let's say if I don't know what it is, I could do inline reviews. Okay, so I could quote the flashcard, similar to an agentic IDE. I could quote this flashcard. Okay, what are plasmids? Okay, and here in this case, I want to be able to understand, and it knows the context, okay, that I'm talking about this type of flashcard. And it will output information. So it says I'm asking about plasmids, which are small circular extra chromosome DNA that typically called non-essential genes. Okay, they're small lifts of DNA that float free in the cytoplasm. Right, very cool. Okay, so in this case, we having to go through the different steps of the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, with the Bloom's taxonomy, remember is that we have the remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So remember and understand. So how can we test our understanding of the information? Okay, how do we test our understanding of information? So if we go into a practice test, for example. So let's say we go into a practice test. So this is a practice test mode. of our deck that we created just now, cellular biology. And what's cool is that you can see that once you go into a practice test, there are different modalities of testing. So there are very simple ways of testing. So this would be a multiple choice, which the following statement accurately describes the key difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Okay. And we also have questions on describe two distinct functions of the Golgi apparatus within eukaryotic cell. Okay, so how do you access the practice test mode? Once you upload the deck, we can go into practice test here. And then we could see our past exam results here and start practice test. And here I could do a mix of SAQ, MCQ, or simply SAQ or MCQ. And what's really cool here is I could actually reference past paper styles. And why is that important? Because we could actually upload past papers from previous exams of the same exam, but previous years, and then use that as a reference style. So we know, or the AI engine would know, okay, this is how it's usually examined, or the style questions usually asked, or the percentage mark distribution, for example. Okay, so this is really cool. It's optional, but it will help reinforce the exam so that the mock exam will be really much like the real exam. So I'm just going to create 5 simple questions and start the process. So in the background, what's happening is that it'll read through the entire information that you uploaded. So this could be the sources you upload, the PDFs, etc. And now it's creating the questions out. Okay, so here I just selected 5 questions just for demo purpose to be quick. And okay, so we have question 1, fungal cells. So there it is. And here we have these called short answer or type in questions. These will be 4 marks. The epithelial cells line small intestine are highly specialized for efficient absorption of digested food molecules. Describe 2 ways cells are structurally adapt to perform this function, relevant organelles or cellular features. So let's say if we're saying the cell membranes are folded to increase surface area, increase in mitochondria, to for metabolic activity, digest food, for example. Obviously, on a real exam, you want to, be more thorough. An experiment requires detailed observation of ribosomes. So I'm just going to go through this for demo purposes, splitting. Okay. And then what's cool is that I'm going to submit the exam. And now an agent will go through every single question and sort of mark it. So on the first question, I got it right. So the cell walls are made of chitin. So I did get it right. And the model answer is the cell walls are made of chitin. Question 2, I got it right as well. 2 out of 2. We have microvilli, an increased number of mitochondria. And obviously I skipped question 3 and 4 and 5 just for demo purposes. But what's cool is that I get it wrong. I'm given instant feedback. The model answer, in this case, what we missed, as well as the model answer what we missed. And for the entire exam, we're given the marks, and we our percentage distribution, strengths, areas of improvements, what it recommends us to study, and the topic coverage analysis. So we know we got it right on the cell structure and the adaptation, but unfortunately, we did not get the microscopy and fractionation programming cell division right. Yeah, so here when we exit out of the exam mode, we can see that there it is. We can see our past exam results, and over time, hopefully, we could actually get the duration as well as being tracked. Over time, our results will get better if we just keep on practicing. Yeah, so this is a really just useful toolbox practice test mode. And just going back to our practice test mode, as you can see, our Bloom's taxonomy. So if we're able to sort of understand by doing practice tests, hopefully these 2 levels is actually already really good sort of fundamental foundation of the entire pyramid, right? We need to remember we're able to understand how to be able to draw connections among ideas. Okay. So when we have a lot of different types of sources or nodes together, we could use a sort of a more 2D or dimensional view of an infinite canvas to draw links between each others. Okay, so let's say we have an example of the urinary system. right? The urinary system is actually a very complex process. So you can see I created a flashcard here with multi-formatting. And what's cool about each flashcard when you generate is that you could edit it. And with is very, very simple. And we could use different types of formatting by typing in slash. Okay, here we could add multi-modalities, including image, audio, toggle, table. So in this case, I have a really cool table with different types of highlighting. And it outlines the different nephron processes and components, including reabsorption of bicarbonate, what happens in the descending limb, the ascending limb, the vasodilata, tight junctions, etc. And the different types of molecules are involved and the outcome or function of it. Okay, so this is one really big flashcard with the question summarize the key processes and components of nephron as described in the kidney. So this is a really huge flashcard. But here is a really good demo purpose to show what type of flashcard you could create using Memo. And so it's, in this case, I could just do inline reviewing and see if I know what happened within each column and just quiz myself straight away. Okay, now, how do we draw links between different types of cards? So let's say if I want to know just the simple concepts, okay, make simple concepts flashcards, just outlining what each subpart of the kidney does. Okay. So I just wanted to create some really overview cards of what the different parts of kidney. So actually what in fact is the kidney has different subunits inside. Okay. And we have the renal corpuscle, cortex, medulla, and the nephrons. Okay. So it wants to create 15 cards, sure. So there are 15 different core concepts of the anatomy concept of the kidney. Okay, so it wants to talk about the renal cortex, medulla, pyramids, columns, nephrons, glomerulus, and Bowman's capsule, and with the tubes that actually connect the different types of stuff in the kidney. Okay, so but how do we draw links between these isolated facts? Okay, so once we create all these cards, okay, and they're all added within here, I could put it in the mind map and add the flashcard and then select the deck where we're creating it from. So we're doing the urinary system. And let's say if I just select it all and create it in. So as you can see, I could add these flashcards within an infinite canvas. So here we're talking about renal capsule, renal cortex, renal medulla, pyramids, renal columns, nephron, glomerulus, and Bowman's capsule. What's cool is that what we know, in fact, in the kidney is that we have proximal convoluted tubule going first, and then we have the loop of Henle, the distal convoluted tubule, and then the collecting duct. Okay, so let's just remove these ones because these ones are more relevant. So as you can see, we could draw links between them. So we know that actually the renal convoluted or proximal convoluted tubule actually would drain the urine into the loop of Henle. And then it will drain the urine into the distal convoluted tubule. So if I want to check my understanding, okay, I could just always ask our copilot on the left, right? Does urine drain from the PCT, the proximal convoluted tubule, to loop of Henle, to the distal convoluted tubule, to the collecting duct? Okay. Meanwhile, let me just finish off this sort of map. Okay, so here in the case, we're not just memorizing particular cards or just quanta information, but we're also giving an overview of what's actually happening. So we know in each particular tube, and you see that's correct. So we have Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle. So let me just add in. We've got Bowman's capsule here. Okay, and let's just remove all this since they're quite more complex. So I could just select it all and just press delete on the key. Okay, so this is actually what's happening in our kidneys, right? In our kidneys, we have the Bowman's capsule, which is what's the function of the Bowman's capsule again? Is that we could, okay, what's the role of Bowman's capsule? So it collects our urine and then goes into the proximal convoluted tubule where it reabsorbs our water, sodium, glucose, amino acids, and bicarb, and then goes into a loop of Henle where it reabsorbs water, more water, and concentrates urine. Distal convoluted tubule where it fine-tunes the electrolyte and pH balance, and then collecting duct. Okay, so if we're just memorizing each specific fact by its own, it doesn't have a higher order thinking, right? We just know that particular fact. But in fact, whilst we're memorizing small facts like this, we want to zoom out and actually have a higher order overview of what's going on. So this is a very simple demonstration of how you could utilize flashcards and mind maps together in conjunction. So each of these units are flashcards, but on the higher order overview, this is an infinite canvas mind map, just like how your brain works. Okay. And now, finally, we could also utilize tracked. Okay, so for ultimate gamification of learning is that we separate these into different Duolingo tracks. Okay, so if you use Duolingo before, Duolingo really is a king of gamification of language learning. And if we could utilize that principle, but to any subject in the world, that would be awesome, right? So here we uploaded a urinary system again, and it's split it all into these individual lessons, okay, of the gross anatomy of the urine transport into different sub lessons, okay. And so let's say if I want to talk about the anatomy of the kidney, for example, okay, I could go into this and press start, okay, and then it goes through the introduction and the material that we need to know. Okay, so we have the external anatomy, the internal anatomy, and the structures. Okay, so this is how each lesson is sort of outlined. Okay, so let's say if we want to go to a particular lesson about what we're relevant in, nephrons and renal capsule. Okay, so here it's talking about the renal corpuscle, basically the filtration process of what's happening. Okay. So within each lesson, there is an interactive AI professor that I could type to or set different languages. So I'm just going to talk about the uh, nephrons, okay?
I am going to teach you about nephrons and the renal corpuscle. Are you ready?
Okay, so I'm not sure if the audio is being shared. Okay, so I'm ready.
Okay, let's look at page 13. All right, let's begin our lesson on the nephrons and the renal corpuscle. The nephron is the fundamental working unit of the kidney, responsible for the crucial tasks of filtering blood and ultimately producing urine. Think of it as the kidney's tiny but mighty filtration system. Within each nephron, the renal
Okay,
corpuscle acts
so
as the
I found this figure on page 14, and I see this blue stuff surrounding it. What actually is it?
You're looking at figure 2512, the fenestrated capillary, on page 14. The blue area you're referring to represents the space where the filtrate collects after it has passed through the filtration membrane. This space is actually the lumen of Bowman's capsule, often called Bowman's space. It's where the initial fluid, which will eventually become urine, is captured before moving into the rest of the nephron. Do you have any other questions on this?
Yeah, so as you can see for this, for our AI professor, is that it's able to navigate different pages and also teach you in an interactive way. So in a voice mode where it will go through every single sort of way, know the content, and then also be able to read diagrams and figures very, very well. And in a case that this allows more interactive learning and more active learning in the understanding phase. And after each lesson, obviously, after we learned it, we want to quiz ourselves. So in this case, we have interactive games at the end, and these are all tailored to the particular type of information you upload. So you could upload any information in the whole wide world to create these type of interactive experiences. So in this case, nephron, and then I could get it right, Bowman's capsule, and I get it wrong, it tells me the correct answer. Again, there are also the different types of modalities. There are short answer questions and long answer questions, okay? And POTO sites, I can then refer back to the information located in the glomerulus. So I only get 1 out of 2, and the answer is they're in the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule, and they form the filtration slits. So this is a structure of an interactive lesson within the track mode in Memo. And finally, last but not least, is a voice mode, similar to what we talked about, but in this case, we're talking about Feynman. And Feynman is a really good way to sort of test your ultimate understanding of a topic. So Feynman proposed using the Feynman technique. So Feynman's a really famous physicist. And using the Feynman technique, actually what happens is that if you want to know how well you know a particular topic inside out, is if you can teach it to someone else. So if you can teach it to someone else very, very well, that means you know your subject quite well. Now, with the problem with teaching is that it actually sort of depends on the student as well. So if the student's being interactive, grilling you questions, right? And hence, and also if the student's available when you're studying, okay, or any person's available for you to teach. So Feynman is a good alternative. That way you can practice your Feynman way or Feynman technique, and then actually Feynman will listen, guide, and help refine your understanding as well. So it sort of will guide you along if you teach it wrong. So you're not just teaching someone wrong information. So in this case, you'll be able to identify the gaps that you know and sort of go back and revise and then teach Feynman again. So this is a powerful way of practicing the Feynman technique using pure voice. So let's say I want to teach about the kidneys again. Okay, so I could select our language here and then talk with Feynman.
Hi, Jason from Memo. I'm excited to learn this topic from your deck urinary system, anatomy, and physiology. Could you explain it to me as if I'm completely new to the subject?
Okay, so let's talk about the renal kidneys, the kidneys. The kidneys are composed of the main structures. We have the glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, the distal convoluted tubule, collecting duct. And the main function is that we want to be able to filter our blood and produce urine, where we're excreting the urine out of our body and reabsorbing substances back into our blood.
That's a great start. To make sure I understand, can you explain in simpler terms what the glomerulus does in this filtering process?
So you can think of the glomerulus like a filter. So, in the kitchen, we have a filter where you can drain noodles. So the noodles would stay on top of the filter, but the water would come out. So we have these things called filtration slits, or the podocytes. And the podocytes would form these filtration slits where big molecules like protein would not be able to filter through the glomerulus. However, soluble small stuff would be able to filter through, such as ions and solutes, etc.
Okay, that's a helpful analogy. So if the glomerulus is like a filter, what happens to the stuff that gets filtered out?
Yeah, so that's just a quick demo. Just go through the main transcript. As you can see, what happens is that the student's really, really curious, and in a sense that it really helps us. So if I really don't know my stuff, it's actually really hard to teach this guy, this Feynman guy. So hence, this is the ultimate challenge, right? If you know your information very, very well, can you be able to teach someone? This is the fundamental principle of the Feynman technique. And can you handle questions like if we're teaching it to a baby, a 5-year-old, right? A very curious student is able to ask these type of questions, right? They want to be able to understand the information like you do as well. So the Feynman technique is also really, really powerful. And you don't have to just use the Feynman mode on Memo, but a very simple way is able to teach someone else, right? Your friend that doesn't know about this, but if you're able to teach someone else this fact, and transfer knowledge very well, that means you also know the information quite well and be able to synthesize facts. So that is a really good general overview. Let me go back to our slides, and hence that's a good general overview of Memo. And in essence, here you go. We could also scan the QR code at bottom right corner anytime you want to access the slides, etc., as well as just contact me for any questions. You can always slide the QR code at bottom right. In essence, I think that's time's up, around 1 hour, just on the time. I think Cindy, maybe we could pass it back to you.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Jason, for sharing how powerful the memo can support our learning. However, I would also love to remind all participants who has come here for study tips that may benefit your study. Like there are so many tools on the market and so many tools like show up every day and so many helpful functions of each tools. But please do consider what your learning needs are and select one appropriate tools or function that meets your learning needs and help you study more efficiently. Also, some gamified design might also motivate us in handling the boring revision task, right? So if you're preparing for exam, try creating the quiz with a few clicks, memorizing the factual knowledge. And if you're tired, maybe ask the AI to be your professor or TA to help you study. If you're preparing for oral presentation, you might attend other sessions the following days with other speakers who will show you some usage of Copilot with Microsoft suites. It's not about how fancy the AI tools can do. It's about how we recognize our learning needs and select the appropriate tools to use. So this series aims to show you different usage that you can like have free access to them. Like Memo Cards offer free month pro plan for Hong Kong U staff and students, right? And you can also access Copilot with using GPT-5 for free with your Hong Kong U email sign in. So if you'd love to learn more about the free Memo Pro account for Hong Kong U students and stuff, I just sent you the link via the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box.